Science Will Win podcast is back and explores how the innovative medications used to treat cancer come to be. It's a groundbreaking time for cancer research with many promising possibilities as there are challenges to overcome. Tune in to Pfizer's Science Will Win on your favorite podcast app.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to The Break Room, a podcast about Black mental wellness in the workplace by Black mental health professionals. And I am riding solo dolo today. My illustrious co-host has the day off. It is his birthday, so I told him he didn't have to really join me. But I'm excited to have a guest with me, a very, very admired and revered and favorite friend of mine as a guest. And today we're going to jump into our conversation about Black entrepreneurship. You know, in the break room, we have not necessarily been kind to white supremacist capitalist organizations. And so the alternative to that is to work for yourself. And so we thought we would finally have a conversation with someone who has done that. And what I love about today's conversation is when we jump into it, you will know that there's so many layers in to the guest's experience, and that she is a psychologist. She's a Black psychologist. She's worked with professionals in the workspace around mental health, and she has a really unique, I believe, entrepreneurial journey. So I'm excited to get into it. So first, let me just let you introduce yourself, and then we'll jump into today's tea. How about that?
I'm excited. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here and talk all things entrepreneurship. I feel like I can talk about it forever, but I'm Dr. Ebony. I'm a licensed psychologist, food relationship strategist, and creator of my therapy cards.
Woohoo! I love it. So Dr. Ebony, what we typically do is, every time we have an episode, we sort of sip a little tea, which we sort of get into a little bit of, newsworthy gossip. And you brought up something in the, green room that I thought absolutely we need to talk about because, social media has us all crazed and confused. We have lost the plot between reality and social media. And even though people keep losing their jobs because they can't remember where the line is, people keep continuing to create content that requires them to lose their job. Because one thing about an organization and the company, they're not going to lose out on no dollars because you chose to act a fool on your own time. That's just...
No, they're not.
They will never do that. So I had seen the headline, but you're going to fill us in a little bit more on the details about these nurses at Emory University Hospital that thought it would be cute, funny. I don't even know what the intention was, but to like talk about their icks, quote unquote, about patients. Like, first of all, HIPAA, anybody? HIPAA? And so at first I thought there was like backlash, and then Emory had put out a statement, but what you told me was they actually have been let go.
They have been
So
fired.
what was actually in the content?
So, there's a trend on TikTok for anybody who doesn't know. I think it's TikTok and Instagram where people talk about the yucky part of their jobs or the things that make, you know how you say it irks my nerves. So there's these icks that people have. And the nurses thought that they would talk about the icks that they have with their patients. So 4 nurses got together and put together this video, and each one of them kind of did like a round robin of the icks that they have, and they gave several. So one said, an ick is asking me how much the baby weighs when the baby is still in your pants, or asking me for blankets, or making multiple trips to the nurse's station, or going back and forth between rooms because you have different women having babies by you at the same time. Just kind of like these kinds of things.
But those feel very much like actual job description. Like when you sign up to be a nurse in a labor and delivery unit, these would be things that are part of your job.
Which are a part of your job. So what happened, patients actually heard this and saw this because, I mean, who's not on social media these days? And if you're not, then if you've ever been a patient delivering a baby with Emory, you're like, did you see this? Or you'll send it to your friends, right? Because it floats around. So the patients called Emory and said that they actually had bad experiences with these nurses anyway, and that these nurses practice poor patient care anyway. And so Georgia is an at-will state, and Georgia let them go. Well, Emory let them go. because
Bye-bye.
of the people. They say it's not the content, but it's the patient care, but it's all, to me, encompassing. And I think what they lost sight of, because of the thing that we're driven towards on social media, which is likes and shares and engagement, and everybody wants to go viral. Right. So when you're trying to go viral, you do the thing that's the most sensationalized, the thing that's going to wow people the most. Like, what's going to get people sharing this? And that's what they did. And Emory said, goodbye. And I think that
Emory
they forgot in their quest to
do?
Yeah.
What you're not going to
do
do is risk us. Yes, because, I mean, there's so many, I mean, not just like patient privacy, but also like, there's JCO, like there's a particular commission that accreditates hospitals. Theirs is a teaching hospital. There's so many layers of funding that you can't mess around with. Like, people are not interested in playing around at all. And in any like hospital really comes down to reputation, right? Like, all doctors are going to be board certified. All nurses are going to be up to date on their like accreditations, all of that stuff. I'm sorry, credentials. So reputation is everything. If people are talking about your hospital as a janky hospital or a place where you're not being taken care of, nobody's going to go there. Like, they're not going to choose to be there.
And
the other
that
thing about
impacts
it too,
them.
I just think about, like, Georgia is one of the states that has one of the more notable Black maternal mortality rates. So of all the places where y'all shouldn't be messing around with patient care. Lesson learned, folks.
Lesson learned, and which also impacts bottom line, because I think as entrepreneurs and people who are in business, we also have to remember that everything tends to circle back around to the dollar. And if you reputation impacts money, impacts dollar. And if you're going to impact their reputation, therefore their bottom line, then that's a no. Yeah. And it's just poor acumen anyway. It's just poor professional acumen anyway to do something like that. And I was thinking about therapists, because months before, there was a therapist who lost her job for speaking out against how she felt about Black men seeking therapy. That was
we did a whole episode on her.
So this was
it was actually a 2-part episode. Yeah. Yeah, we have to figure out. In some ways, like, social media isn't new, but I feel like the accessibility to going viral and celebrity, quote unquote, that goes along with that still feels very fresh. Like, everybody feels like they have the opportunity to do it. And I think that really does. Your point about increasingly wanting to be provocative or like hop on the latest trend, and how can you say something that's going to be the shocker or the thing to get attention, because that's the goal.
That's the goal.
I need y'all to listen up. Y'all got bills to pay. So, you know, think real hard and long before you post something, which I feel like I have been saying for years. Like, pause before you post. Just take a breath and think, is this really what we need to be doing right now? Or maybe I should just go get that blanket. Maybe I should just sit myself at this nursing station and mind my business.
You know, we have a bunch of stuff that we could talk about. I had to do that the other day. I had to do that the other day. I was like, should I post this or should I not? It was something dealing with R. Kelly being released and people going to his concert. And I was like, I'm going to just ride this one out. I'm going to just back away.
Let that ride.
So sometimes you just got to back away.
Sometimes you have to know when to back away. So thank you for that, for starting us off with the tea. So you mentioned, you know, that you are a licensed psychologist and the creator of My Therapy Cards, but just tell us a little bit more about who you are, what your business is, like what drives you to do the things that you do as a professional.
Besides anxiety, I think that what drives me is to be completely honest.
Let's be 100% transparent.
Besides this all being a trauma response, I really do think that what drives me is I really do not know what else I'd be doing if I was not doing what I was doing now. Being a service to folks, helping people, thinking critically about life issues and figuring out how to walk alongside people to help them kind of figure out life in a way that lets us live our best life, so to speak. So my work centers around trauma recovery, and helping Black women, mostly other women of color, reclaim their voices and find more empowerment in their journey to recovery. I kind of got here because of my work in the VA and doing trauma work with veterans and then doing trauma work with first responders. But my heart has always been to end up working with Black women in some capacity. And I know that in order for Black women to show up in our full selves, we got to work through a lot of trauma. There's a lot of trauma for us to be whole in relationships. We got to work through a lot of that stuff for us to be whole in our jobs and to fight imposter syndrome. There's a lot of stuff that we have to work through. And just by being a Black woman in society, in this world, period, there's a lot of stuff that we have to unpack. And so my work in therapy really centers around helping Black women just kind of find out who they are outside of these experiences. And I practice in Austin, Texas. And so I can serve the entire state of Texas. I'm also licensed in California, but right now I'm just mostly focused on Texas. And as a food relationship strategist, I help educate Black women and other women of color about how to think critically about diet culture and how traumatic that has been on how we see ourselves and how we show up in the world, in our bodies, and the things that we say about our bodies, body image stuff, and how most of it is rooted in the systemic issues like racism and patriarchy and all these things, and how that has centered how we even view food and then view our bodies. And then created my therapy cards as a way to help sort of work around some of the barriers that exist, like money and stigma and geography, because a lot of these things, if people don't know, we can't practice in states we're not licensed. And so if you have people who want to work with you, they can. And so I wanted to find a way to actually provide access to quality mental health tools to people who may not be in Texas or California. And so I took the questions that I ask in therapy and basically put them in a card deck so people could have questions from a psychologist that looks like them, so they could do some meaningful work that will help them gain some insight into some of the things that may be going on for them.
I love it. There's so much to unpack there. And as I was listening to you, I realized I just jumped right into the conversation and didn't acknowledge, I have known Dr. Ebony since, I always say since before she was Dr. Ebony. So I think that's important, right? There's probably some like a dual relationship disclosure sort of thing we should do here. But, I was faculty at U of H, back in the 2000s, and I had this young, excited Black woman from Jackson, Mississippi apply to work for me as a doctoral student. And I always remember Ebony because John Schwartz was the training director at the time. And John Schwartz to this day says that he's never called a student to offer them admission that was more excited than you.
Listen, people, y'all still don't know what that meant. That meant that I was getting out of wherever I was. I was getting out. And this is my way out.
And so Ebony and so the other thing is so then Ebony was assigned as my research assistant for several years, and for several years, at least 3 days a week for 5 semesters, at least something, probably closer to 6 semesters, if not more.
It was
Ebony was in my office with me.
Yeah.
We had a co-working space. It was 435 Farish Hall.
Yes.
And I probably, outside of your authenticity and your what's the word I want to use to describe you? Like you're not self-delusional. Like you are one of the few people that I know that is very much, you're grounded, and you have a very, I think, balanced sense of what your strengths are and what your limitations are. And that even as they change and grow, your ability to be honest about them has been consistent. And so I think, because of our proximity, because of the frequency of our spending time together, and that trait, Dr. Ebony and I are the closest of any of my advisees that I've worked with over the time. And I have a lot of love, and I celebrate their wins from a distance. But Ebony and I like to think of us as friends and colleagues. And so I have a lot of respect and admiration for you because of that. And one of the things that strikes me that I'm going to circle back to about you, and I think it's related on a couple different things. I think you have a really keen ability to be present be connected, but also sort of, think objectively about the process and what it is you're doing, right? So the fact that you could create my therapy cards, what I hear you say is you have a sense of awareness of what you're doing. There's an intentionality about what you're doing in all things. And then, what you've been able to do is leverage that skill that you have, as an entrepreneur. So I wonder if you could just talk a little bit more about your entrepreneurial journey. I'm particularly curious. I don't think I've ever asked you this question, but was this your plan all along, even when you started graduate school? Just let us in a little bit more on your internal process around that.
Yeah, and thank you for all those kind words. And I just have to tell you and your audience that I would not be a psychologist had it not been for Dr. Nikki, because Dr. Nikki had to say yes to me. And had she not said yes to me, I would not have gotten into that program, and I would be in cosmetology, in the cosmetology world right now, because I was going to hair school, so that we just all are clear. I wasn't going to even try again. So you said yes to me, and then
yes, but Ebony, but here's the thing. Yes, I did. And I have like zero regrets. Like, you were wonderful to work with on so many levels. And the thing that I'm trying to pull out of you is a recognition that, like, even if you had gone to cosmetology school, I have no doubt that you would have some sort of brand line in Sephora right now. Like, like there's a real sense of business acumen that I think that you have, that I would just like to hear you talk more about your awareness of that.
So I knew, so I had an aunt who did hair, and she was the only person in my family who ever has owned a business that I know of. And so when I saw her own a salon, that's why I wanted to do hair. So my second love, I would say, is finding creativity and expressing myself through hair. And I wanted to do hair, and I was like, oh, I'm just going to do hair and therapy. So that was the first kind of like understanding that I had of what it would be like to work for myself. The other part of that I started out with, that I was joking but serious about, is I knew that I never wanted to work for anybody else. I never wanted anybody to tell me what to do. I always wanted flexibility, and I knew that the maximum amount of like the highest, let me say that, the highest place where I would be able to achieve that would be working for myself. Because I knew at some level, somebody would always be telling me what to do. And I would always say, I don't want anybody signing off on my stuff. I want to be the signer. I don't want anybody critiquing me. I want to be the one who critiques. And so that was me. And that's who I always was as a child too. Like, I had many questions. I wanted to be at the forefront of a lot of stuff. Right. And so I just felt like I thought differently about things. So that's honestly how it started. And I said, well, how also, because I don't want to leave this out, what's going to be the path that I will make the most money? Because I've got to make money in order to survive. I've got to make money in order to not be in poverty. I've got to make money in order for my lights never to be shut off or my phone to be shut off again. So these are the things that were running through my mind. So I knew that I couldn't just stop at a master's. I knew that I needed a PhD to reach the peak of this field that I was in, and whatever that was, that's what I needed. Now, I felt like when I was in the U of H program, I was like, okay, what's the most effective way? So my brain has always worked this way. What's going to get me the most money? Not the counseling center, but the VA. So I need to work in the hospital.
No.
Yeah. So when they told me that I had to go to the counseling center, I was like, shoot, I got to get these basic skills, but I still need to backdoor my way into the VA. So because the VA was where I was going to get the most money, right? So that's how I ended up in the VA. And I just circulated in that system from practicum to internship to postdoc. Right? Because I knew that, and then that's how I made the decision to do a 2-year postdoc versus a 1-year postdoc. So if I came out, I would be a GS-12 instead of I would be a GS-11 instead of a GS-9. So I would be at a higher GS level than my colleagues or peers who had gone through a 1-year internship. So it was always me being strategic about where the money was. Who's going to give me the most money? So then I knew to climb the GS system in the VA. Once you leave the VA, if you ever work for a federal system, they can't ever take that GS level away from you. So when I made the decision to go to the city level, the city had to match that GS level. And so my mind was always like, who's going to keep me at the top? And so then when I made the decision to transition from full-time working for someone to entrepreneurship, I said, I can't leave until I'm making the same amount of money that this job is paying me. And when I got there, that's when I left. That's not love. So my mind has always
it.
been rooted in the following the money, honestly.
Yeah. And my mind does not work that way. And that is why I'm learning stuff even as we speak, right? Because when I was a graduate student, I was like, I don't want to work in the military system. Like, I am anti-military and anti-authoritarianism and blah, 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 blah. I'm going to go where my passions lead me. And that led me to not having a lot of money in my pocket for a very long time. So thank you for that insight.
Yeah.
It strikes me that your ability to talk about money and your relationship to money and your desire to live a certain lifestyle without any sort of qualifiers, without any sort of shame, self-correction, anything like that is noteworthy, particularly as a Black woman. And I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about what is the relationship between one's relationship to money and their ability to be successful as an entrepreneur. And I'm really also thinking about this lens of being a helping professional. I know that that's not our particular audience, but I do think that's an added layer for us.
Well, I have to be honest because it's a constant work, right? So even when I was talking about money, because I'm so conditioned to think that talking about money is you boasting or you bragging. And all the while I was saying what my process was, something in the back was like, oh, but tell them you've always been interested in trauma though. But make sure you say that you've always wanted to help the people. And so I was like, I'm just going to sit on that. And so it's always a constant, when you talk about your relationship, it's always a constant awareness of, is this something that I want to say or is this something that I feel like I have to say? And like you said, in order to qualify that process. And so when you're working through your relationship with money as an entrepreneur, you've always got to be aware of how the old teachings and the old kind of like conditioning and the beliefs continue to show up and how present they are for you. So for me, whenever I talk about money, whether that's me asking people to get in my program, that's whether me posting, telling people, look, the last day to ship the therapy cards is this Wednesday. Make sure you get your order in. There's always an anxiety that comes up for me. There's always this thought that, oh, you're talking about money too much. And so for me, the way that I've dealt with it is to do it anyway, because I know that if I don't do it, you don't make money. And so my thing is I have to make money. So whether that's good or bad, that helps me to kind of stand on this idea that I have to market. I have to ask people to pay me. I have to ask people to buy from me. And that helps me sit through what is the word that comes up? It's anxiety, but I also feel guilty. I also feel shame that comes up. I was never the kid. I don't know if you would put this together now, but I was never the kid to even sell chocolate in school. Whenever a fundraiser would come up, you can count me completely out. I'm not selling the chocolate. I'm not going door to door. I'm not asking anybody to buy anything from me because I don't want to hear no. So the way that I work through that as an entrepreneur is a constant thing because people are going to tell you no all the time. So my relationship, and I think what people have to work through is you have to get really comfortable being uncomfortable and letting yourself sweat and doing it anyway. Like literally I'm hot. Like I started to turn my camera off and take off my jacket. Like literally I'm hot. You got to get comfortable being uncomfortable because I think that's the only way you're going to do it and pushing through because that conditioning is deep.
Yeah. I don't even have a fully formed question, but it strikes me that it's important for us as Black folks, and I'm going to always talk specifically about us as Black women because we know that gender component is real serious. But it strikes me that there's some really interesting layers or interrelationships between our sort of desire to be anti-capitalist because we know how much capitalism has disserved us, right? Like how much harm capitalism can serve. But you know, we're not creating a new economy all on our own. So we have to engage in it to some extent. And we also know that capitalism has created this need to make a certain amount of money to be able to live a life that gets your basic needs met. Like not even like, you know, being ultra wealthy, but you have to, you know, the stakes just keep getting higher, right? About how much money you have to make. And I think that shifts I'm just thinking through that I think has a particular interesting intersection for Black entrepreneurs, and particularly folks that are connected to culture, right? Like, because you do have a very real sort of ethical, cultural compass around the work that you're doing. You could be doing a lot of other things, and your choice is to do the work that you do with and for Black folks primarily, but women, women of color, marginalized people, I would say, maybe in lots of different ways. So I do think it makes our path a little bit more challenging, right? But I appreciate your transparency around the like sitting in the discomfort. And I will also say, and as part of my own entrepreneurial journey, of which I feel like I'm just on the start of, but I've already seen major shifts in how I am having to just reassess my relationship to money, right? Like, I didn't realize like how much my mindset around that, was impacting like so many things. And so then when you're out here and all the bills are paid by all the work that you do, there is no other check coming in. Yes. You gotta it's like right here in your face. Like, you cannot avoid it. You have to deal with it.
And that's how I feel. I was like, I mean, I know we're going to get into this, but leaving the security of a full-time job and knowing that a check is going to come it's going to be the same amount or more every 2 weeks, knowing that that's going to happen, is quite different as an entrepreneur when you're like, listen, if I don't market this program, we won't have that extra income to pay those contractors that we just hired. We will not have that income to actually pay for that system that we just bought. And so it makes you honestly put yourself out there in a way that you may not otherwise. I can say now that I've gained a little bit more comfort because I have to, because there would be times when I had a full-time job that I would say, I'll do it later, because I had a check coming. And so the security of the check coming stopped me from marketing myself as I needed to, stopped me from starting the program. And so it forces you to put yourself out there, because if not, you're going to go without. And that's hard.
Living Corporate is brought to you by Pfizer. Technology is not only changing our lives, but revolutionizing human health. By uniting transformational technology and cutting-edge science, Pfizer is pioneering biopharmaceutical innovations that not only treat difficult diseases, but can cure or prevent them. Every day, Pfizer is working to discover breakthroughs that change patients' lives and opening new worlds of medical possibilities. To learn more, visit Pfizer.com.
It is very hard. So let's talk about that. You said, you had an intention to make a certain amount of money through your business before you were ready to take the leap. But were there other factors or things that came into play in your decision to actually move? Because you could have continued to do both, right? Double the money. But what was your what were the things that facilitated you actually saying, you know what, I got myself?
One thing I have to say was therapy. My therapist actually helped me make the decision, because it was a lot of fear around leaving and a lot of anxiety and questions and worry whether or not I could do this. And it was actually her. A lot of people don't know that therapists do this, which is why I think it's helpful to point out. She was like, let's look at the numbers. She said, so how much money are you leaving on the table? If you leave in January versus May, can you afford to just leave $15,000 on the table? I don't think you can. I can't. So I don't think you can. So basically the month that I chose to leave, we calculated. Right. And then she said, let me remind you, you have the highest degree in the land. If it doesn't work out, you can always go back and get another job. I said, you know what? You're right. Because apparently I forgot, because you have this idea that is all or nothing. Anxiety really makes you think in black and white terms. So it's either I'm an entrepreneur or I'm not, because once I jump, I can't go back. And she had to remind me, that's why you have the degree. You can do whatever you want to do, and you can go back if you need to. I said, you know what? You are absolutely correct. So it was her. It was therapy. And it was me being honest in therapy about that being a fear, because most of us don't want to tell the whole truth about that because we don't want to look incompetent or whatever issue we have. But that Then it was the height of the pandemic. It was all the social unrest. It was all the awakenings that we had. I was working in a predominantly white organization and I was over it. I didn't like the way I was being treated as a Black woman that high up in the organization. I was the only Black woman at that level. I didn't like the lack of protection that was there. I loved my clients, but I wanted to do more meaningful work. Right. I wanted to work with folks who looked like me, especially during this time. And so that was enough for me to say, okay, I could do both, but could I do both at the level that I want to do it? And the answer was no. So I couldn't serve the number of clients that I have now, still having a full-time job. I couldn't speak at the level that I wanted to speak with a full-time job because I'm still beholden to them 40 hours a week. Right. So I couldn't travel like I wanted to. So the ways and the impact that I had was really restricted with the full-time job. And so I wanted more impact and I wanted more freedom to be able to say the third thing I would say what I wanted to say in ways that I wanted to say it, because this is right back to the T, right? I was still working for a very public organization. If I'm out here on anybody's podcast or anybody's live or social media saying something that they don't agree with, they could have let me go. So I had to be very careful about my words. There were things that I couldn't post. There were times of the day that I couldn't post. And people may not realize I can only post during certain times because I was still supposed to be, I had a 40-hour job that I was beholden to. So I wanted more freedom. And the fact that I couldn't express myself in a time where I felt like I had gained the boldness and I had given myself permission to be authentic and show up more in all that we were going through those years, I was like, I can't keep quiet. I can't not say anything. And I think this is not going to help the people that I want to help being here. And so that's all kind of like what led to my decision to leave.
I love it. I love all those things. There's so many little nuggets in there. And there just one that I do want to highlight because I hope people hear this. Like what you said about therapy was, I was honest with myself in therapy. And I mean, we always say therapy works if you work it. That's what we mean. Like I'm not going to pay my money and not expose all of this, right? You're going to get all of this, even when it makes me uncomfortable. Let me say it out loud, right? So I can have the sort of change that I'm saying that I'm willing to invest in for myself. And for me as the observer, of this part of your journey from the outside, right? And what I know to be true of my experience as well is when you really choose yourself, like when you really are living in, alignment with your values and your sense of integrity, and you do it because you want to be right with yourself. I feel like that creates greater opportunity or greater facility. Like it's not as difficult. Nobody's going to say, neither one of us on this podcast will say it's being so easy being an entrepreneur. Not saying that, but I feel like sort of the universe meets you in a different way, that things sort of like create a different momentum because you are doing work that the work probably for you feels more effortless. It's about how to make the work facilitate the lifestyle and getting your needs met. That's where the challenge is. And maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but the work feels effortless. So I'm going to segue into one of my last questions for you and related to that. So for me, what I've noticed is I experience stress, right? And I do have anxiety about money and me being I'm the person responsible for a whole nother human being, right? So when the money is not working, it's not just my life that's impacted, but my daughter's life. And I'm also thinking about generational wealth and what the legacy I want to live for her, right? So that there is stress, but for me, I go back to, but this is all stress that I have chosen. This is no one else's stress. And, whoever I work with as a client, whatever I produce is from my own hands. It's my own mind, my own opinions and perspectives. And it's my choice. So if it's a working relationship and it does not work for me, I have authority to be able to sort of figure out how to disconnect or move on, right? Or choose something different. So I wonder if you could just talk a little bit about your experiences about your mental wellness as a full-time employee versus mental wellness as an entrepreneur. Like what's the cost benefit ratio? How does that work out for you?
It's definitely different. I feel like maybe because I was busy or maybe because I was distracted, I didn't really pay much attention to my mental health as a full-time person. I went to therapy, but I was working on stuff like relationship stuff, family stuff. In this branch, like in this arm of therapy, I'm working on all the things like I feel shame or I'm second guessing myself or I don't want to really do this program, but I know I have to do it and that's not really what I want to do. So I'm bringing more of I think the ways that I see myself as an entrepreneur into therapy now. I will also say I felt a lot more mentally stable as a full-time person too. I feel like now I can't say if that's me doing the work. My therapist says that is because of me doing the work. She's like, because healing, you can't unknow stuff. And so even on days that you're unraveling because of the healing journey that you're on, not because, you're not doing the work. But I felt like now I feel and experience things a lot more. I don't know if that's because I am more stressed because I definitely don't have more time, but I'm more stressed. I'm feeling things more. And I do feel like I'm doing the healing work. And I wouldn't trade it for anything. I feel like this is the healthiest, as interesting as the journey is. This is probably the healthiest I've been and the most, I think, high level I think about. I'm at the high level thinking that I have on most days is different than where I was when I was a full-time person. The way that I show up for clients, I feel more present. When I show up for clients, I feel more aligned. Like it doesn't feel like work. Like when I started this and I actually saw the questions, I was like, I really am working for myself, but it really doesn't feel like work. And I love that, that I get to show up and do the things that I love. And I think that keeps me sane. One of the things that I made sure was in place too, is I still make sure that therapy is paid for every 2 weeks by my business. So I don't know if that's something that people didn't know they could do, but it's for me professional development. Because if I can only take my clients as far as I've taken myself, and in the work that I'm doing, it helps me do more in depth work for them. So it's a part of the team. It's a part of the brand. It's a part of the business plan for me to be in therapy every 2 weeks. Because I just need the space for myself as a person who's riding solo all the time. And having to make all the decisions. It's a lot. And another thing for Black women, I think for me as a Black woman, I want to make sure that I have space and give myself permission to have another Black woman hold space for me. And for me to allow myself to be vulnerable in that way during that moment. I think it's great because I make so many decisions day to day that I just I just want to be a mess. And I just want this space to be a mess. So I think that as an entrepreneur, I would say that I'm experiencing a lot more, but I'm also more stable. Well, I was more stable then, but that's because I wasn't aware. I would say, so let me take the stable out of it. I'm more aware as an entrepreneur. Let me say that, which helps me to do a lot more meaningful work. So as an entrepreneur, I don't think that we can afford not to be taking care of our mental health, not to be resting, not to be moving our bodies, not to be making sure that we carve out time for ourselves. I don't think that we can afford that. I can't tell you how many entrepreneurs I've seen decline over the years because they ventured into entrepreneurship and just neglected other parts of their lives. So the mental part of it, the mental wellness part of it, I think should be something that we build into our brand and our business plans. It should be one of the things that is top priority, just like making money.
I 100% agree with all of that. That all really resonates for me. And I really appreciate, I won't say love. I appreciate your saying, like when I was working full time for someone else, I didn't have the time, really luxury privilege to think too much about myself. Right. And I think that is so true for the vast majority of us. Right. That's part of the dysfunction of capitalism, right? Is that it does keep you so busy. It sort of keeps your head. I always like think about this metaphor of like your head down and you're just like keeping 3, maybe 4 steps ahead, but you don't have the freedom to sort of look up and see the whole thing, and be able to make different decisions for yourself. And so as an entrepreneur, you have opted out of that. And so for me, what I have said, if I'm not going to opt into a life that feels more balanced and value, value driven for me, then I could go work for somebody else, right? I could go work for somebody else. And so I am going to book in meditation in my day. I am going to make sure that I go to therapy during the week. I am going to make sure that I get this good rest, because I know that I need to do that for myself. And so then I get to structure my life around my values in a way that I could never really do as an employee for someone else. Even no matter how much, like you said, you were high up in your organization, and I was a tenured professor, and I didn't have much status in my last job that I was in, even though my title sort of said something differently, right? So and sometimes it feels like the higher you are up in an organization, the more access the organization feels like they have to you, which really sort of gets in the way of your own sense of autonomy. And I like this idea about leaning in to do more of the deeper work on yourself for yourself. I think that is something we all need to be doing more of, but that it's not always comfortable, and certainly not always easy to do. But the payoffs, right, are for me greater in magnitude. So I understand exactly what you're saying. Like at this point in my time, in my life, like these last several months have been difficult. There's been like stuff coming left and right, internally processing through stuff, and then life stuff happening. And I've never felt more, I think for me, it's that I feel more in control, not necessarily stable, but I feel more in control of how I am moving through all of this difficulty and challenge. And that is a sort of calm, that I know that I'd never had before. It's just like a self-assurance that even though things is real crazy and and I'm crying while I'm typing up these emails, right? Or like, right. Maybe I got to give me an afternoon nap just to keep going through. But, I know that I am living way more authentically. So yeah. I feel
that too. I think something real quick came up the other day. Speaking of the control part, I was like, should I open my license up in California? It's just the capacity. Like I can gauge what I need to do, and I don't have anybody telling me you need this, you need that, but that you have options. Do I want to open? And that's my control. And I think that helps keep me grounded too, because I can open it, I can close it, I can take as many clients as I want, I can decrease it, and that level of control, I think, helps the mental wellness, because you're not running your day. You're not running every day like a client meal. People are in and out, but that you get to say who you're going to see, what type of people you want to work with, and when you're going to do it. And that level of control is especially helpful on this whole journey.
Yes. So with that said, I want to respect your time, and I want to wind things down. Talk to us about all the different ways that people can work with you. I know everybody's a fan now that they've had the opportunity to spend this 35 minutes with you. So what are all the things you're doing right now?
Yeah, so my therapy cards are always a great way to support the work that I do. We have a deck for women, we have a deck for teens, and we have a deck for men. And we also have journals to accompany each of those. And you can find those at mytherapycards.com or mytherapycards.shop. But that's always a great way to support us and to give back. And we also have a donation program where you can even buy a deck and we'll donate it to a woman, teen, or man chosen by our company. I'm also like a business coach now. A business consultant now, out here helping other therapists do what I've done, which is an interesting journey. So I have a coaching program for mental health professionals and coaches called The Couch Reimagined, where I'm helping therapists break free of some of the things that we've been told we can't do, and to reimagine what our careers could be, and to kind of like think bigger about who we are in ways that we can serve, in ways that we can make money, and to get comfortable talking about money as therapists and coaches. So that's what I'm doing. And I'm also speaking and, really, to be honest, as an entrepreneur, trying to figure out who I am and what I want to do as a food relationship strategist. So that's my 2023 thing. I'm trying to figure out ways that I want to present that information, because I love doing it. I just want to present it in a very matter of fact, more controlled fashion. I think I want to speak more to organizations about it rather than individuals. So that's where I am now with that. And of course, therapy. If you're in Texas and you're needing a therapist or know somebody who might be looking for one, please look me up. I'm at drebony.com, and you can always follow me on Instagram. I spend way too much time on Instagram, but I absolutely love it. And I'm Dr. Ebony online on Instagram and Dr. Ebony on TikTok.
I love it. So many wonderful ways to connect with Dr. Ebony. Definitely, at the very least, if you're listening to the break room, at the very least, go buy one deck of my therapy cards. Like, at the very least, you should do that. Because they're a phenomenal tool and a phenomenal resource. Dr. Ebony even got my mama. Well, she didn't do it, but my therapy cards even got my mama to be interested. It was like, let me see these questions, and like, you mind if I? And I was like, baby, take this deck. I will get me another one. Here you go. So
that's huge, Nikki. That is huge.
It's huge.
You know, that generation just is not about therapy or anything. That's huge.
Yes. So that's why I wanted to make sure I made that clear here in this space, like that. It really is a wonderful investment. And, the cards are evergreen, that you don't have to be in a place of, I don't know, crisis or upheaval or discontent to use them. Like, they really are, useful in lots of different ways at various, times in your life. So for sure do that. Okay. So we're going to wrap up, but we always wrap up with a special venting session called My Last Nerve. So this is why I'm doing my last nerve. So, okay. So Trevor Noah, beautiful, intelligent, funny, witty, seemingly sensitive, caring, compassionate South African Black man, Trevor Noah, who had been the host of The Daily Show for 10 years. I don't know, a long time. He signed off this past week, because he's decided to leave the show. And in his sign off, he did this beautiful tribute to Black women. And, it made all the butterflies in my stomach sort of take flight, and I got like really moved. I watched it that night, when he did it, and I was like, this is how you use your platform. Thank you, Black man, for shining light on us. And you're absolutely fucking right. Like, Black women are the truth, right? And then Dr. Ebony sent me this post that broke my heart, because she and I both spend too much doggone time on Instagram.
Yes.
Some of it posting, some of it looking at other people's business, and a lot of it sending each other stuff to look at on Instagram. And she sent me this post where someone, I don't know that the source was named, but there's this, so there's Craig the writer, he is a pretty prominent, I think, social media person. He sort of has like these, I think, more thoughtful takes on stuff related to the culture. And he had shared some thoughts from someone that had personal experience with Trevor Noah. And she just said that it felt disingenuous to her because of some of the particular choices he's made in his life. And so that deeply disappointed me. And so what she pointed out was like his publicist, his personal assistant, all of these people right on his team are all white women. And so number one, that's a problem for me, because there are way too many overqualified, talented, creative, dynamic Black women in each of those spaces. Publicists, personal assistants, all the things, right? Stylists, all the things. There are Black women killing it in each of those areas. So that every one of those positions as a white woman says a lot to me about your values. And then his dating history. People love who they love. Interracial relationships have been existing since the beginning of time. It's not even about that, right? It's about the fact that I know for a fact he's written a book himself about how he was illegal to even exist in South Africa because his father is white. His mother is a Black South African woman. And there were oftentimes he had to hide because they were worried that even his proof of life would cause his mother to be jailed, right? That he was illegal. it's the hypocrisy for me. It's the hypocrisy for me. Like, don't give me no lip service if your values are not being played out in your life. And I actually had somebody DM me after I posted after I reposted, right, that the woman's critique of like, yeah, the tribute sounded wonderful. Yeah, it was great. And here's what I know to be true in real life. And somebody was like, two things can't be true at the same time. And that's absolutely not what this is. For me, it would be the equivalent of me saying all of this stuff on the break room and everything that I say in any other public platform. And then all of my clients are white, wealthy, heterosexual men. Like there's a disconnect there, and that he clearly is unaware of the disconnect that is particularly problematic. And so I want to say, keep your funky ass tributes. Like that's my last nerve. If you know you're not living in alignment and you know the internet got receipts, like it's pictures of you. We could easily Google these people. You could have kept it, because now it feels completely disingenuous. And now again, I don't think Black men fully understand the real heartbreak Black women experience over and over and over again, when it seems you all take every opportunity to step on our necks. Like it's not even though we are accustomed to it, we never get comfortable with it. And so I almost hate that he used that moment and that last part of his platform in that way to even do that. Just keep my name out your mouth. Like you just don't do that until you deal with your own shit. Go buy a pack of my therapy cards for me and go to therapy. Like deal with your own shit before you say anything about Black women. Just, we don't need your help, because oftentimes the help feels like harm at the end.
And this is what I think the person who posted it said too, is it almost feels exploitive in that you thank Black women because you know to thank Black women at this point in our history in society gets you likes, it gets you views, it gets you more of the work from Black women, right? So we're going to share, we're going to like, we're going to engage, we're going to boost you up. And so you're thanking us for taking care of you and then exploiting us at the same time, because you know that right now people are even using, Black women are hot. We're trendy. We're hot because people know that we've done all the work and we continue to do all the work to keep this country in this world put together. So to say that felt real intentionally manipulative and exploitative. And that let me continue to highlight Black women, because I know this is also going to get the last bit of views that I need on my way out. Let me just thank them. But I'm not going to employ them. I'm not going to pay them. I am not going to date them. That's, I think, that's the heartbreak. At least not the dating, we understand dating, more so the employment. You're not paying Black women though. You're not employing Black women. You're not helping Black women in their families. All of the people that you pay, personally, I'm not talking about the company you work for. We're talking about you.
I'm talking about your brand
stylist,
itself.
You are not paying Black women, yet you're thanking them for doing work that has been free labor, to be honest. And then even in your going out, we're still doing more labor for you. I think that's what hurt the most. And that one was shocking. Yeah.
Work on yourselves, Black men. Do your own work. We got us. We gonna always have us. We keep doing our work on ourselves. We waiting on y'all to catch the fuck up. That's it.
Please.
That's it. All right. I know I'm going to get a lot of feedback on that one, and I'm here for it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ebony. Yes, for sure, because it's a real conversation.
Seriously.
Thank you so much for your time, your generosity, all of the nuggets. We might actually break this up into 2 parts, Dr. Ebony, for our listeners, but we'll for sure make sure that we have links to my therapy cards and your website, in our, show notes so people can find you. The Couch Reimagined for those mental, health professionals. I'm assuming you're going to have another cohort in 2023 at some point. So
in March at some point.
Awesome. Yeah. Awesome. Wish you much continued success, happy holidays, all of that good stuff. And we will see everybody well, don't see you. We'll hear you. You'll be with us. We'll be together next time on The Break Room. Peace.